Hey guys, how is it going? Hope you're having an awesome day today. Today is beautiful in Winnipeg, Manitoba. It's been really hot these last couple days. Yesterday alone was, I kid you not, it was 35 degrees. Plus the humidex, it felt like over 40. And now that's Celsius, so I don't know what that is Fahrenheit. It's like probably like 95 or like over 100 degrees. Super, super hot, for Winnipeg at least. Definitely the hottest day of the year. Which is a perfect tie-in to my, I guess this video in general, because I will be reading to you my self-published books. I thought it would be really cool and fun to do. I have never done this before. I have never read my books out loud to anyone. And I just thought it would be really cool. So these next couple videos that I upload will be kind of, they'll be like video books. You know how they have audiobooks for books? This will be a video book. Which I don't know if anybody really does. I'm sure people do these kinds of videos. I don't know how it will go. I will dedicate one video per chapter. There are 16 chapters in the first book I will be reading to you. A World Divided, Blazing City. This is more of an introduction video, and then I will also be reading to you the first chapter. But I won't be uploading the videos subsequently. One by one a day. I'll also be mixing up my videos with my regular videos that I do. This is a lifestyle channel. So the next 16 videos I upload won't just be, you know, the 16 chapters of this book. I will also be throwing in random videos as well that I do for my channel. So yeah, this is the very first book I ever wrote. I started writing it when I was 18 years old. And then from there on, I just kind of kept adding to it, and it kept growing bigger and stronger. So there was a lot of editing in terms of the story because it kept changing, and it didn't really get to a place where I was satisfied until probably 7 years later. Because I didn't actually self-publish this book until 2015, which was 7 years after I started writing it. So I self-published it in 2015, and then I self-published the sequel, A World Divided, Frostbite Village, a year later, which I'm very excited about. And there are 8 books in this series. It's an 8-book series called A World Divided, and this is the first one. I also wrote 2 other books, part of a different series. It's a trilogy. So depending on how well this reading goes, I will continue on with the other books. Yeah, I'm very excited. The first book I ever wrote, and I will say that if I had written this book now, because I'm 28 years old now, so I literally started writing this book 10 years ago, fresh out of high school. And it's very amateur, obviously. I wrote quite a bit of it when, you know, I didn't know much about the world. You know, I didn't know much about writing. I didn't know much about people. So in that sense, it's very amateur, the way this book is written. There are parts in this book I wrote when I was 18. There are parts I wrote when I was 20, 23, 24, 25. So yeah, it's a very interesting journey, so sit back. If you're into these kinds of videos, enjoy. If you're not, I totally understand. I imagine there's probably lots of people out there who don't want to, you know, sit and watch a video of somebody reading their books. I don't know, maybe. Again, this is going to be fun for me. I've never done this before. So yeah, it is called A World Divided, A Blazing City by Jesse Roman. That is my pen name. So I'll give you a bit of a synopsis. I will read the back blurb for you guys. Welcome to the City of Fire. It's summer vacation, and Ryan Davidson is a 17-year-old suburban teenager. When he accidentally stumbles into another world from inside his high school cafeteria, his reality is turned upside down and immediately thrown into peril. Friend or foe, enemy or ally, Ryan can never be sure of who to trust until the last pull to return home is just a withering flame of hope. The vile Gothic city, with its blood-red sky and terrible secrets, are just the beginning of a dangerous and soon-to-be deadly journey that could end in absolute and utter annihilation of not just one world, but 2. So this is a YA novel. It's fantasy, slash science fiction, dark fantasy. It is quite dark. And when I say it's YA, I wouldn't really recommend it for really young teenagers, probably starting at around 15, 16. I also like to call it new adult as well. Generally the 18 to early 20, mid 20 range as well. So just letting you know. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, here we go. Chapter 1, Record-Breaking Paranoia. It was like the whole of a civilization was burning right there in front of you. Sertonia City was trapped inside a sudden rise of unimaginable humidity within its industrial core. The heat was a plague, a festering pot of desolation. It came in and made itself known by sailing over the city like an eclipse shadow, bringing with it the surge of dread that would lead to a downward spiral of record-breaking paranoia. Within just a few short weeks, all four corners of the planet would sporadically learn of the contained and soon-to-be dangerous epidemic. It would appear that one of the greatest tourist capitals of the world was going up in flames. It wasn't literally going up in flames, though, but it was a fine line between the literal and figurative. Headlines all over the world warned of what to expect when traveling to the blazing city, stating that the newly nicknamed City of Hell was nowhere to be during one of the biggest heat waves of the century. But let's reverse back a bit to a few weeks prior to when the heat first struck the city. The first sense of a major decline was when the tourists stopped visiting, and then the rumors began. Did you watch the news about that deadly heat wave across the pond? Everyone is talking about it. The beautiful Sertonia City is so warm that flowers are melting. That's right, flowers are melting. People are also dying, but the flowers are melting. Could you imagine such a thing? What? Absurd. Absolute nonsense if you ask me. You can't be talking about the Sertonia City, built on the largest island in the world. My husband and I were supposed to take the kids down there this summer for vacation, but thanks to all this freak show business, we aren't anymore. It's a death pit where civilians are dying on the sidewalks. You heard me correct there, dying on sidewalks, and face first. I heard that woman stepped onto the street with her bare foot, and it burned so badly they had to cut it off. You're right, it's such a freak show. My friend told me that he heard from his sister that she heard from her hairdresser that several cars lit up in flames from how hot the rays of the sun were. It was like an action movie from the way my friend described it. The hairdresser was there and saw it with her own two eyes. The car blew up and formed a crater in the ground the size of a house. The poor girl was stuck on the bus and had to worry about getting blown up by the sun before it was even lunchtime. Heat stroke can become quite bad when the weather gets out of control like this. My gardener told me the illness it brings with it is contagious and will spread to the rest of the world and kill us all. That's what a news reporter said as well. She sure did. I already informed her all my family and friends to take caution. Those were just some of the more, let us say, creative stories being discussed. For the past several weeks, there was a non-stop repetition of sweltering temperatures reaching above 120 degrees, sometimes reaching as high as 130. Not a single raindrop, or a thunderclap had been felt or seen since the beginning of June, and everyone who was living in the city was in an extreme uproar. There was only so much that one could take before a major breakdown would occur. It would create a chain reaction of anxiety and hatred that would eventually affect every other person in the city. There was no stopping it. Environmentalists were regarding the summer of '07 as a bad case of heatwave paranoia, which would soon die off and fade away. Reports were issued that this abnormal weather hadn't been encountered in the city for several decades, and that could potentially cause severe physical and mental stress with high-risk suicides. For those who lived in the city, many decided to take a leave of absence, and others permanently moved within days, quitting their jobs, uprooting their families, and not looking back. The airport was a constant fill-up with people leaving, and airplanes were departing faster than anyone would expect them on a normal day. No one was coming, everyone was leaving. Since the year of its founding in the late 1800s, the island that Sertonia City was built upon was considered the standout piece amongst everything else. As the decades went by, the city flourished and grew grand in scale, reaching the heights no other city had ever reached before. Fast forward to today, and the city was constantly being updated into a sprawling scenic tribute to the fantasies of what a dream world should be. You would never see the roads or parks dirty and unkept, as everything needed to always be in tip-top shape for its citizens and tourists. Littering was considered illegal and included a hefty charge if anyone was found doing so. To describe all the beautiful features that the city had to offer would virtually be impossible. It was a place where there was always something to do, and rarely would someone feel bored or out of place from all the attractions and sights. The ocean surrounding the city was a pure turquoise blue, almost unnatural, as if it were dyed. Millions were spent each month to keep it clean and refreshed and to ensure the marine life were healthy and well cared for. Sorry if I stumble over my words a lot. It's just habit. I'm not the most articulate when it comes to reading or just talking in general. I do kind of fumble through my words occasionally, so please forgive me. Conversely, the city's true beauty was not showing through at present, and it was drastically turning disastrous. It was overwhelming, actually. Grass turned a sickly brown color, and gardens withered and died. Garbage had been piling up behind stores and side streets for several weeks now, creating foul smells that were attracting unwanted pests and vermin. The garbage collectors just weren't able to attend to them fast enough. Paint peeled from walls, and cement absorbed heat that was hot as lava, making it impossible to stand on, even with shoes, for longer than a minute. It was pointless to describe how many people were sent to the hospital daily from heat strokes and sunburns, but it was even more pointless trying to estimate how many of them would end up dead, succumb to their sun-inflicted injuries. Every nurse and doctor were kept up around the clock, from sunrise until sunset. Some even had to be flown in from other cities to help with the demand, but enough just wasn't enough. Every day during the usual rush hour from 4 to 6 o'clock, car accidents were a common regularity and traffic jams were a must. Whomever was trapped within such clustered traffic would have to be warned, as police frequently patrolled the streets during all hours of the day. People would get out of their cars to yell at each other, fight one another, to slash tires and smash windows. Others often passed out in their vehicles while stuck in traffic, opening an invitation for their cars to get violated with weapons from others who were equally angry and exhausted, their children crying and arguing in the back seats. Arrests were made every 10 minutes, and jails were quickly getting filled up. This was now considered very common, amongst other deadly occurrences. The city had turned from a peaceful getaway into a criminal distortion within weeks, and it was beginning to look as though there would be no end in sight. Not too far from the havoc of the city was a small island that wasn't feeling the effects of the heat wave and catastrophe. It was called Sertonia Crest. This miniature island was connected to Sertonia City by means of a long white bridge called Merger's Bridge. It was the biggest bridge in the entire world and was the only way to get back and forth between the two islands. Sertonia Crest was populated within a suburban and occasionally gated neighborhood to families that had money, and lots of it. It wasn't considered a place for the financially low. The houses, of course, were something to marvel at, and many visitors would drive up and down the streets just to stare at all the beautiful and expensive homes, such as the Anderson Manor. Many times a tour bus would drive through filled with tourists, whipping out their cameras and remain speechless at such splendor. The pristine lawns and emerald grass, palm trees, and smooth roads were just major jealousy factors of several passers-by. Could it even be possible that Sertonia Crest was home to its very own breed of flower? How could you not notice those blue petals and red stems lining the sides of the white sandy beaches? The Crest's tiny community was mostly peaceful, But interesting things did happen. There were disappearances from local students that were never explained, nor were they ever found. Robberies and floods were, of course, very common, as well as nosy neighbors. Yes, it was your typical suburban town, but something different was about to happen. It wasn't the fact that Sertonia Crest was living in normality. It wasn't feeling the effects of the heat wave like the city was, something that boggled meteorologists. It was the subtle and whispering fact that a shadow had turned its gaze from the city of hell and towards the crest itself. Inside a sleepy bedroom where our story begins, a simple alarm clock went off. Part 1. Lighting the match. Well, that was very exciting for me. I enjoyed doing that. So yes, I will continue with chapter 2, 3, 4, all the way until the very end. So thank you for listening to me. I'm going to enjoy reading this book to you, and hopefully you will follow along. So thank you for watching. See you next time, and I will upload chapter 2 tomorrow. See ya.